allowed out here? Why? It's not their neighborhood. We know what's going on, so y'all got somebody that's real. This is where it started at. The owner was upset. What's right and what's wrong. That lady Jackie who put that business in another county, we gotta know how to use them too. And when it's just a lifestyle.
The video drawing international attention. Ahmaud Arbery, who's African-American, is seen running on a Sunday afternoon in February in Brunswick, Georgia. Gregory McMichael and his son Travis, who are white, are in a pickup truck ahead, both armed. Travis fires a shotgun and kills Arbery. According to a police report, the father, Gregory McMichael, a former police officer who once worked for the local DA's office, said there had been several break-ins in the neighborhood and a man he viewed as the suspect was running down the street. He and his son grabbed their guns and went after him. McMichael also said Arbery began to violently attack Travis. Arbery's mother says her son was just out for a daily jog.
He was into fitness, and that's just something that he did. That's something that he enjoyed doing.
An attorney for Arbery's family says he was unarmed and tried to avoid the truck. He says there's no evidence to suggest Arbery was committing a crime. Georgia does have a statute allowing citizen arrest.
However, you must personally observe the crime. So it can't be you believe that someone may have committed a crime in the area in the recent past.
Supporters of Arbery's family have organized protests. LeBron James, Viola Davis, and Wanda Sykes among those voicing outrage. NBC News has been unable to reach the McMichaels, but attorney Alan Tucker, who's known Gregory McMichaels for 30 years, says there isn't a prejudicial or racist bone in his body. Tucker says he released the cell phone video to get the truth out there. Two prosecutors recused themselves because of connections to the McMichaels, one of them from Waycross, writing he thought their actions were perfectly legal, and Travis McMichael was allowed to use deadly force to protect himself after Arbery allegedly initiated the fight and grabbed his gun. On Tuesday, the DA, now responsible, called for a grand jury to consider criminal charges. But because of coronavirus closures, that can't happen until June.
What pains me the most is that he was killed, but then the authorities.
Ahmaud Arbery. He is the 25-year-old black man who was gunned down in February while his family says he was out jogging. The new video casts doubt on one suspect's version of what exactly happened. Here's CBS's Omar Villafranca.
This police body cam video taken just moments after Ahmaud Arbery was killed shows investigators standing near the young man's body. In the video, obtained by our Jacksonville station WJAX, officers are seen talking to William Roddy Bryan at the crime scene.
You're a passerby coming through? Nah, not necessarily.
Bryan recorded the deadly February 23rd confrontation on his cell phone. His video shows Arbery running through a Brunswick, Georgia neighborhood with Greg and Travis McMichael chasing him in their truck. It ends with Arbery shot and killed by Travis McMichael. The video was leaked in May, months after the killing, and immediately sparked national outrage. The McMichaels were arrested and charged with murder, and Arbery's family also wanted Bryan behind bars.
I had nothing to do with it.
Before his arrest, Bryan maintained his innocence, saying he had nothing to do with the confrontation and killing of Arbery. But the new body cam video reveals a different story.
I pulled out of my driveway, was going to try to block him. He was going all around it, and I made a few moves at him, you know, and he didn't stop.
Bryan was eventually arrested and charged with murder. All three men have pleaded not guilty and were denied bail.
I just spoke with Bryan's attorney, Kevin Goff, who still maintains that his client was nothing more than a witness to the shooting. In a statement, Ahmaud Arbery's mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, says she wants all the suspects held fully accountable by the law. No trial date has been set.
While jogging in a neighborhood near Brunswick, wants a judge to make sure his accused killers stay in jail.
It's horrible. It's draining. But at this point, it has to be done.
Ahmaud Arbery's mother spoke just moments ago after leaving the courtroom.
Today, the 3 men charged with felony murder in Arbery's death went before a judge asking to be released on bond. News4JAX reporter Kelly Wiley just left the courtroom in Glynn County and joins us with an update on the day-long hearing. Kelly.
Yeah, the court just recessed for the day. They're going to resume tomorrow at 10 a.m. Still a lot of big topics, elements on the table that need to be decided on. The big thing here today, the bond, whether or not Travis and Greg McMichael were going to be released on bond, that's not been decided yet. Where we left off in here was the state stating which exhibits they wanted to bring forward, specifically these text messages, these racial text messages that they had notified the court that they thought were relevant to whether or not these two should be released on bond. Where we left off is simply them listing them out, and the defense teams for Greg and Travis McMichael saying whether or not they wanted it to be heard in court. The judge allowing a lot of it in. Some of it he sustained the objections to, but there's a lot that's going to be gone over tomorrow morning that's going to be back on this topic of race and whether or not Travis and Greg McMichael had a history of using racial slurs, of certain attitudes towards people of color. And that's what's going to be discussed at the top of tomorrow. But we did hear the arguments over Travis McMichael getting bond. That was what was taking over the majority of the first part of the hearing, and that's what we've got kind of a wrap up for you right now. Family and friends of Greg and Travis McMichael took the stand today. The father and son are accused of chasing and killing 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery. The wife and mother to the McMichaels said her son Travis has a 4-year-old and hopes he can be released.
Because he loves home, he loves his son, and he will stand up to his responsibility.
Arbery's death made national headlines. Video shows him running through a Satilla Shores neighborhood, the McMichaels nearby in a pickup truck. They told police they thought Arbery was a burglary suspect. The defense for Travis and Greg McMichael paint the picture of two devoted fathers with careers as public servants. But state prosecutors argue the men are a flight risk, facing a federal investigation into civil rights crimes tied to the death of Arbery. During the hearing, the state showing racial text messages from both McMichaels, including multiple exchanges between Travis McMichael and a witness in his bond hearing.
Quote, ha 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 ha, exclamation point, sayonara, you're. Do you remember Travis McMichael texting you about shooting a crackhead with gold teeth and a high point .45? You remember that text exchange?
No, sir, I don't. Not.
You actually responded to it, saying something about Newport and a 40. You remember that?
Arbery's mother in tears over the thought of her son's accused killers walking free.
It was heartbreaking to hear her sit there and say that he was remorseful. Those guys were out for like 74 days. I lived right then in the community. No one reached out and said they were sorry for my loss. And I don't think he was remorseful, none at all.
And tomorrow we are set to hear more of these racial text messages and posts that state prosecutors say they discovered throughout their investigation. There was an interesting moment at one point where the defense, as they were going through these things, and they've already had a chance to look at these text messages and posts that they know are going to be brought up related to their client. At one point, one of the defense attorneys said, as disgusting as it is, what does saying the N-word have to do with flight risk? And they also referenced that Travis McMichael has friends of color. So that was one interesting moment where there was a lot of back and forth between the prosecution and defense attorneys. Again, we're set to hear a lot tomorrow, and we are expecting to be back in the courtroom to give you updates on what we see. Reporting live in Glynn County, Kelly Wiley, Channel 4, the local.
A memorial ride honoring the life of Ahmaud Arbery. He was shot and killed just over a year ago in the Satilla Shores neighborhood outside Brunswick, Georgia. News4Jax reporter Marilyn Parker was in Brunswick talking with people who revisited the neighborhood where the shooting happened.
It wasn't an easy ride to take. How did you feel riding through the neighborhood where it happened?
That's one of them things that you really can't put into words.
For some, there's still a lot of pain just passing by the Satilla Shores neighborhood off US 17. It was here a little over a year ago when Ahmaud Arbery was shot and killed while jogging down the street. Hundreds of bikes and cars rode through the neighborhood Saturday, honoring Arbery's life. Why did you ride for Ahmaud today?
I rode with Ahmaud today because I grew up with him, seeing him around the neighborhood, and I felt like this is something that I need to do to show my support for him and his family.
Arbery's aunts organized the ride and say his death wasn't in vain. They say it brought many changes to the community as far as leaderships and put more eyes on the citizens arrest law.
So we have to remind ourselves that we have to hold these people accountable for what they've done, and then we have to go out and make things right, change legislation, and just be proactive in our community.
Also at the event was a push to vote in upcoming elections because of Arbery's case.
If we'd had the right district attorney in place, then those guys would have gone immediately off to jail and not been in 74 days at their home. If Barnhill out of Waycross, the district attorney had not abdicated his duties and covered for them, then we would very much have had them brought to justice much earlier.
The family says they're grateful for the community support and are preparing for a trial. Though they say it's going to be tough having to relive the moments of Arbery's killing, it's a fight they say they must face for everyone.
And this is the parking lot where hundreds of people and bikes and motorcycles were first gathered. As you can imagine, this brought back lots of emotions for many people. And the family tells me they expect this to be an annual event, and they are incredibly thankful for the community support. In Brunswick, Marilyn Parker, Channel 4, the local station.
Arbery's death, Greg McMichael, Travis McMichael, and William Bryan. The McMichaels were arrested on May 7th of 2020, and Bryan was arrested May 21st, weeks after Arbery was shot and killed.
I'll pause. So how can we cure racism? Allow me to reveal the secret. America got it wrong in 1964 when it outlawed segregation instead of mandating integration. I'll pause to let you digest that. You see, when we outlawed segregation, all we did was remove words and put them in parentheses. No longer did signs read, whites only, no coloreds allowed. But like a book, words in parentheses still exist. You just don't read them out loud. So these concepts, they still existed in our head and in our heart. Remember, racism as its core is predicated upon fear that we are inadequate. So as a result, we choose to oppress another person or persons. So how can we cure racism? It's simple. Mandate integration in your own life. Mandate integration in your small groups. Mandate integration in your youth leagues. Mandate integration in your businesses, because it is imperative that eventually, collectively, we move from fear to familiar.
Family and friends take the stand as two of the men accused in Ahmaud Arbery's death plead to be released from jail.
He was having trouble sleeping, lost his appetite, I know, for a couple of days, a week or so, and felt remorse for it.
Arbery's death sparked nationwide protests. Video shows the 25-year-old running unarmed. Father and son Greg and Travis McMichael in a truck chasing him because they say they thought he was a burglary suspect. During the hearing, the state showing racial text messages from both McMichaels, including multiple exchanges between Travis McMichael and a witness in his bond hearing.
Quote, ha 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 ha, exclamation point, sayonara, you're. Do you remember Travis McMichael texting you about shooting a crackhead with gold teeth and a high point .45? You remember that text exchange?
No, sir, I don't, not.
You actually responded to it, saying something about Newport and 40. You remember that?
Friends of Travis McMichael and his mother painting a different picture of the accused murderer, of a single father and a former member of the Coast Guard.
Because he loves home, he loves his son, and he will stand up to his responsibility.
Ahmaud's mother emotional during the bond hearing.
If they're allowed to go home, Ahmaud wasn't allowed to go home. And Ahmaud was allowed to go home. So them going home would be totally unfair.
Charged in Arbery's murder are still awaiting trial. 11 Alive's John Sherrick reflects on the past year as told by Arbery's mother and father.
1 year later, Ahmaud Arbery's mother is not just waiting for the trial of the three men charged with murdering her son. 1 year later, Wanda Cooper is taking action. She's filed a $1 million federal lawsuit accusing the suspects and others of violating Ahmaud Arbery's constitutional rights. First in a racially motivated murder, and then in an official cover-up by law enforcement authorities. All of it exposed when the video surfaced. If only, she says, her son could know what his legacy would be. If only she could embrace him again.
You didn't have a chance to grieve properly. In the fall, it's when I think it really It really hit me that Ahmaud is gone. He's never coming back.
Ahmaud Arbery's father, Marquez Arbery Sr., speaks of how Ahmaud's death has been bringing people together to fight together, putting new hate crime laws on the books in Georgia, and now the governor is working to overhaul the state's citizens arrest laws to outlaw vigilantes.
I seen a lot of people pull together. I seen black and white people pull together. And I just want to tell them God bless them, and just keep on fighting with us till we get justice for Ahmaud.
1 year later, Ahmaud Arbery is a force for change.
For a timeline of events from that day 1 year ago, head over to our story on 11alive.com.
On a morning where you might see neighbors out and about, the roads in Satilla Shores are quiet. The space where a small memorial once stood now lays empty. A lot can change in a year, but this community still holds on to the memory of Ahmaud Arbery.
There's a particular woman in the community, and she said every morning she walks her dog. You know, that's her morning.
Arbery's high school football coach, Jason Vaughn.
And she was saying that sometimes, even now when she walks the dog, she's expecting to see Mott just kind of come around the corner.
Family and friends said the day he was killed, Arbery was doing one of the things he loved most, running. His death hit Vaughn hard.
I love Mott like I love all my football players. You know, as a teacher, as a coach, they get pieces of your heart, and Mott had a piece of my heart.
With the tragedy, a community rallied. Vaughn co-founded the 223 Foundation, where people still share their reasons for running. To mark Arbery's birthday last May, Vaughn called on people to run 2.23 miles to share it online, and the response was staggering.
Over 100,000 people on Maud's birthday did that virtual run. And the I Run with Maud hashtag was imprinted over 800 million times on that day.
Coach Vaughn said he was amazed to see how many people around the country were running for Ahmaud Arbery. It really came to realization, though, he says, when he realized it reached a global impact.
North Korea, China, Russia, like people literally over the globe did that run. And it just kind of opened, it just opened us up to realize that we were on the right path.
A path to never give up. With tonight's memorial walk and candlelight vigil, Vaughn hopes to send a powerful message.
We are then going to leave the neighborhood doing something that Maud wasn't given the opportunity to do. And like I told the community, please show up to support the family.
And I asked Coach Vaughn if he feels like really anything has changed over the last year. He said right off the bat he feels like Brunswick really came together and showed its love to him as well as Ahmaud Arbery's family. He said that's not something to overlook. And he also pointed to the fact that this area now has a new district attorney, and he says other changes have been made as well. Again, those are things he is proud to see, and they are not to be overlooked. The event tonight is scheduled for 5:30. Live in Glenn County this morning, Ashley Harding, Channel 4.
It's 1 year since Ahmaud Arbery was gunned down while jogging in southeast Georgia. The case gained national attention months later after cell phone video leaked showing Arbery being shot and killed during a confrontation with a group of white men who had chased him down. There have been many questions over how the case was initially handled, with the other men not charged until cell phone video surfaced on social media. And we've just learned that Arbery's family has just filed a federal civil rights complaint against the three men, along with the former Glenn County police chief and the former DA. The Cobb County DA was named the special prosecutor after other prosecutors recused themselves. Mara Sirianni has more on where the criminal case stands now.
It gives us an opportunity to do this the right way. It's heart-wrenching to know that it's been a year and they're still waiting for answers.
There is a mom and a dad that have been grieving since the loss of their son.
25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery was gunned down exactly 1 year ago, police say, while jogging through a neighborhood in Brunswick where he lived. The three men arrested and charged: Travis McMichael, who's accused of pulling the trigger, his father Gregory, and a third man, William Roddy Bryan Jr. Whether all three suspects will have a joint trial or separate trials could still be up in the air. Newly elected Cobb County DA Flynn Brody and Deputy Chief Assistant DA Jesse Evans say Cobb County is more than capable of handling a high-profile case with a long list of charges.
The most serious is malice murder. There's multiple counts of felony murder as well.
Really depends on the defense attorneys, what they're asking for the judge to do for them.
The men wore blue ribbons in honor of Ahmaud's favorite color, the case gaining national attention and an outcry for justice.
For the minority communities, what they want is equality, equity, and just justice in our criminal justice system. The state in this country is tired of the intolerance. They're tired of the hate. They're tired of the divisiveness.
Part of the reason that we're having these difficult conversations now is because maybe we haven't done a good enough job in the past as prosecutors and law enforcement having open dialogue about these things.
And you can read more about the Ahmaud Arbery case and how his family and the community are honoring his memory right now on $11
million civil rights lawsuit. Arbery's death sparked cries for racial justice across the nation last year when white men armed with guns pursued and killed him as he was jogging through a neighborhood. Tuesday's lawsuit accuses Travis McMichael, Greg McMichael, and Roddy Bryant, who have been charged in Arbery's death, as well as the local authorities who first responded to the shooting, of violating Arbery's civil rights. Attorneys for the men charged say they committed no crimes and that they suspected Arbery was a burglar. For Newsy,
my life took a drastic change. I look at pictures when he was 1 and 2, and look at pictures of him being a young adult. I try to really move through this real quietly.
Some days I don't know whether I'm gonna make it or not. He called me every day. And now that I can't hear from him, it's a struggle for me every day. People look at people for who they are, not the color of their skin. Look at people like
4 months, William Bryan and his attorneys have said he was simply a witness to the crime who happened to come across it and start recording cell phone video. Well, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, that's not the case. Earlier this morning, the lead GBI agent over the case said Bryan coordinated with Gregory and Travis McMichael by following Arbery in their trucks and essentially pinning him in between their vehicles to prevent him from escaping multiple times before Travis ultimately shot and killed him. Here's how the lead GBI investigator explained it to a state prosecutor.
Did he talk about his attempts to sort of run Mr. Arbery off the road or push him off the road using his vehicle?
Yes, he made several statements about trying to block him in and using his vehicle to try to stop him. His statement was that Mr. Arbery kept jumping out of the way and moving around the bumper and actually running down into the ditch in an attempt to avoid his truck.
We've also learned the person who pulled the trigger, Travis McMichael, allegedly called Arbery the N-word before law enforcement arrived and after he was dead. That's what Bryan told GBI investigators. The agency also found at least 2 other social media posts showing Travis using similar language in a threatening and a casual manner. In Georgia, in order to formally charge someone with murder, a grand jury must convene and indict someone. That can't happen in Georgia until June 12th because of the pandemic.
In a statement, Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr writes, "The family, the community, and the state of Georgia deserve answers." It comes as we learn more about the initial investigation. In a statement, Glenn County says the DA's office advised police initially that no arrests were necessary. But late today, District Attorney Jackie Johnson fired back, saying nobody in her office directed any Glenn County police officer not to make an arrest. It was only after the Georgia Bureau of Investigation took over the February shooting case that they arrested Gregory and Travis McMichael within 36 hours.
It gave me a little sense of relief and again, hope, because I was just about to give up hope.
Tonight, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation confirms it is looking at this video obtained by Jacksonville station WJXT as part of the investigation into the death of Ahmaud Arbery. The short video shows a man walk into a construction site and look around. It's one of several angles of video being reviewed, the GBI says, including this obtained by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The GBI says all of these were investigated before arresting Gregory and Travis McMichael. In a statement, lawyers for Arbery's family say the house was empty. In a statement, lawyers for Arbery's family say the house was empty, under construction. Arbery engaged in no illegal activity and was inside under 3 minutes. According to police reports, Gregory McMichael says he and his son Travis armed themselves and began to chase Arbery because they thought he was a burglary suspect, telling police Arbery began to violently attack and Travis shot in self-defense. But Arbery's family says he was just out for a jog, unarmed. Tonight, the GBI is investigating a threat made on Facebook against future protests for Arbery. His mother says she is still waiting on justice.
This is just a first step. I would like to get all hands involved, every hand that was involved, convicted and them in prison.
The GBI is not ruling out future arrests. Blaine Alexander, NBC News.
We've had a string of burglaries. I was leaving the neighborhood, and I just caught a guy running into a house being built 2 houses down from me. When I turned around, he took off running into the house.
Okay. What did he look like?
It's a black male, red shirt, white shorts.
I just want justice for my son. I just want them to pay the price for their crime they did. He didn't deserve that because he was a very good young man.
Justice for Ahmaud! 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 Run with Ahmaud! Run with Ahmaud!
We want to, of course, extend our deepest condolences to the Arbery family. We also want to take a moment to thank them. One of the last things you want to do in a circumstance of this nature on a case certainly that's been around for a period of time is to ask anybody, particularly a victim's family,